So today we are on next to last Indigo. So Indigo, we got 0.63 potassium perchlorate, 0.06 strontium carbonate, 0.06 copper carbonate. This is where my choice of scale fucks me over because I need 0.48. Well, the scale does not really go down that far. So I can do 0.5 on these. I'm having to round up a little bit. Maybe I'll throw off my final numbers, we'll see. The 0.15 Parlon we always use and the 0.05 of red gum. But again, because we have the copper carbonate in there, we have to use lactose because the magnesium will burn too hot and it would destroy the copper carbonate before we get any color. So here, we're using our strontium carbonate and that's going to give us our red color, and then we're using our copper carbonate to give us our blue. So when you take red and blue, both primary colors, that gives you purple, which is a secondary color. So the really cool thing here is that we're taking our potassium perchlorate, which is going to be our oxidizer, and then we're taking our lactose, which is going to be our fuel source, which is going to create heat for everything else to happen. So our strontium will actually break down a little bit, and when it breaks down, it'll give us a red color. And then both our Parlon, which is a binder because it's rubber, but it's chlorinated rubber. That will act as our chlorine donor. And then the reason we're using potassium perchlorate is because we also get more chlorine from it, so we're getting it from two sources. The more chlorine we put in here, the more reactive it is, the better our color looks. Now, the chlorine and the strontium are going to give us strontium chlorate, which is actually unstable at room temperature, which is why we can't just make a powder of it and put it in. So when this burns, the strontium chlorate is actually going to be the reactant that is then going to mix with or burn at the same time as our copper carbonate, which is going to give us a nice indigo color, which, I mean, if you're like me and you have an 8-color crown box, it's purple. So, just like the professional cooking shows, everything has been weighed out. Put it in ounces because I don't know what the fuck a gram is. So we need a lot of oxygen. 5.04 ounces of potassium perchlorate. And for anybody curious, these are moles. So my final batch size is going to be 8 ounces. I multiply my decimal number by that 8-ounce batch, and that tells me how much I need. So we have, out of 8 ounces, 5 of them are potassium perchlorate. We need so much oxygen. Add in the strontium and the copper carbonate for our colorants. Quite a bit of Parlon because that is our binder. And again, a chlorine donor. Add in our red gum. Try to get all the Parlon out of there because goddammit, I already weighed it once. And lactose, which will be our fuel source. You see, that is not an encouraging result. So with all of the rounding up, we're almost a 1/4 ounce over what we're supposed to be. I don't like that. It should be alright because even though the absolute numbers are a little bit off, we are actually keeping them in ratio. So by keeping them ratioed to each other, we should be alright. And again, because that's why I'm providing the mole numbers, is because the absolute amount doesn't actually matter. What matters is how much each reactant has in the equation. And in my recently learned editing tricks, so I'm going to speed this up because I'm sure this is the quality content people clicked on this video for. assuming that there is actually more than one of you. And yeah, I actually figured out how to isolate audio, which is different than I expected, honestly. Every time somebody shows editing software, you see this horribly complicated thing, and you're just like, oh god, what are you doing? And then you learn how to isolate audio, and it's like, oh, they're literally just showing you the editing screen with all of the sliders on it. Like, you don't have to do all that. If I learned what the sliders did, then my audio quality may be not complete shit. But, I'm over here learning how to make fireworks. Learning how to edit videos is just a quality of life thing. I'm making everybody not totally miserable. So once we end up making this batch, then that will be almost all of our colors actually made. And they're only in 8-ounce batches, so you've seen kind of when I make the putty, how big it is compared to my 3-mesh screen that I use for cutting it. And so I really can't do a whole lot bigger than that in a single batch. But yeah, after Indigo, we only have Violet left. And I actually have a bunch of Violet left over from a failed experiment. So we may actually make the batch just to show everybody how it's done. And then I'm thinking I'll go ahead and actually cut the mini stars I made, because that was the experiment that didn't go quite so well. And I may try to make like some rising tails out of them. I'll probably also need to do a video on making fuses. But technically, once you've made one batch of stars, then you're ready to make artillery shells. Well, you have to have different fuses, but most of them you can't make anyways. And say this year I've actually done some experimenting, and I got rockets to work. And yeah, part of the reason that I pour back into the bowl is just because that is like a mix for me. You ever see like Nile Red? He'll fold it this way, fold it this way, fold it this way, and that's how he mixes. Well, because I've got to move it out of the way, I could technically just, move that piece of wax paper and then pour it directly onto the next one. But instead of doing that, I do like to pour it back in the bowl. And so, normally the stuff getting filtered out was the Parlon. I think this may actually be bits of the red gum that are getting filtered out now. And with experimenting with rockets, if there is one thing I have learned, it is number one, I understand why the space program was so hard. And if it's number two, it's that I'm bad at math, man. Although, I do wonder how much it would be to hire an editor. And then I wonder how much their counseling would be, because they would have to listen to 45 minutes of me like just raw, unfiltered. Or actually, I may also do another batch where I remake the red stars. Just because I'm 99% sure I use like strontium carbonate or bicarbonate instead of strontium carbonate. But the thing is, like, I don't know why I have both. That would explain why the stars come out so ugly, but like, I don't know what the difference in their reaction is. And you know what? Because I have no fucking consistency whatsoever, let's go ahead and do our final filter on the 40. But actually I wonder if Twitch has like a fireworks section or something, because that would be kind of cool. Which is probably the exact reason why Twitch won't have one. However, if I go buy a kiddie pool, y'all can see me in a bikini. And that is a threat. This is why I will never be rich and famous. Half of you are laughing your asses off because, you know, me wearing a bikini is a threat, and the other half are fucking terrified. And then, what, sixth verse, same as the first? If you've watched any of the other star videos, you know what's coming next. One of these days, I'll pull a little sneaky on you. There is actually a plan to do a different type of star that's not the rubber stars, which is what these are. And that will actually require, like, packing it. Learning my lessons because I am a smart animal that learns. But yeah, like, traditionally what you do with stars is you make them into a powder and then you just kind of pack them, like, with a hydraulic press. And that's kind of like the normal way to do it. These rubber stars are a unique recipe, and the whole point of them is that you don't need that press to do. Hence why we kind of turn it into a putty that's a little wet, and then we roll it out and then slice it with the screen. Literally, we're just doing that to avoid using a hydraulic press, because initially that was easier. And I mean, if you just want to do small fireworks and stuff, then, you know, doing it like this in an 8-ounce batch is really the easiest way. You're just kind of limited by the size of your screen, kind of determines how big of a batch you can do. Whereas, I mean, if you've got a hydraulic press, then why are you watching my broke ass? But you can actually make whatever size batch you want, really. And then it's just a matter of, well, how long are you going to sit there pressing your stars? And of course, you can get star plates, which are kind of your molds for it. I do actually have one, and that is going to be an experiment that I do. They have these ones that Skylighter calls go-getter stars. And I guess the idea is that they're asymmetric. So whenever they ignite and they cook off, then they're actually supposed to, like, fly away, which I think would look amazing for the rockets. So not only is this the first year that I'm doing rockets, this is also going to be my first 4th of July making the go-getters, if I end up having time. The thing is, though, that because go-getters are pressed stars, we have to use a different recipe. So instead of doing the rubber stars, I'll be using a more normal recipe. And that will be, once we're done with these, that will be the next video. Probably. Well, I may actually do the artillery shell video. That way, if anybody wants to make them, then, you know, they'll actually have a little bit of time before 4th of July. Whereas if I end up waiting and putting it out later, then, you know, it'd be like the week before the 4th of July is when people are finally going to see that video on how to make artillery shells. And there will be some people very, very mad. Especially if, you know, you're watching me so that you can make fireworks for the 4th of July, which, you know, literally, why else are you here? And kind of one of the nice things about fireworks is that you can kind of home make a lot of tools. Unfortunately, the great part is also kind of its downfall, because a lot of the people who know how to make fireworks, they really just won't teach you. Because the way that they do it and the tools that they make, they're all custom made, they're kind of trade secret. You know, they may get like a lot of the city contracts and stuff to put on fireworks shows, they're not businesses. They're just people who know how to make fireworks. So a lot of people won't teach you because they don't want you to become their competition. which unfortunately, a lot of them are older. And so either they, they get too old to teach somebody, and then they take their recipes with them or whatever. And then, well, what happens? There's no one left to make fireworks. Sad. Welcome to this episode. Today we'll be giving everybody, depression. Welcome back to the channel. Today we will be giving everyone depression. Hello, my old friend. It's so good to see you again. At least with you, I won't die alone. By the way, that, poem that I was saying was, actually a song. Bonus points if you got the reference. And, if you're hearing this part, it's because, even with fast forwarding everything that I've been speaking through, I still have time left at the end. So rather than produce a video with no audio over random pieces, you get me rambling instead. Which I may have to retape that here soon. And here we go, like Gordon Ramsay, taking our wet thing, making it dry, so that in a couple of minutes we can make it wet again, so that we can make it dry again. Because that is the secret to being a good chef. And that, homeboy, is how you shake it and keep it sexy. I don't know if I'm wiping off the black powder prime, or if I just didn't quite put enough in there. See a handful of bare spots though. Although I guess our batch size for the primes was actually pretty good, because it was actually close. There we go.